Hi, welcome to IELTS Pro Tribe. I'm Aaliyah. Today we're going to look at a step-to-step guide about how to take the IELTS reading test. Let's take a look. In today's class, we will look at 4 steps in taking the IELTS reading test, and I'll also explain the purpose of each steps. And at the end of the class, I will introduce the principle order and tell you how to take advantage of this principle to help us understand the questions. Okay, let's look at the 4 steps in taking the reading test. Step number 1. Quickly skim through all the 3 passages. Well, skim means to read quickly in order to get the general idea of the passage. Well, as we all know, there are 3 passages in IELTS reading test. You have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions, and if you add them together, there are more than 3,000 words in this reading test, so you really don't have enough time to read through every single word of the passage. And also, as a good English reader, you should really practice the skill of skimming and scanning. So what are we trying to do here in step 1? In step 1, we are trying to take a look at the topic of the 3 passages. In IELTS reading test, they are generally the reading passage generally involves these 4 topics. They are society, science, economy, and art. And another thing we should also take a look at when we are skimming quickly through all 3 passages is to look at the question types. There are, in IELTS reading tests, they usually involve, there are 10 different question types. Even though in one test, there may not be 10 question types, and any single one of those question types may appear multiple times. For different students, you may be good at this type of questions. For example, for me, I'm really good at filling the blanks, and I hate matching headings. I just can't make sense of it, and it takes me a longer time to finish those questions. So this is what I usually pay attention to when in step 1, to skim through all 3 passages. So what's the main goal? What's the purpose of step 1, skimming through passages? In step 1, we are trying to decide which passage to read first and which to read last. Usually for most students, they like to read through passage 1, then passage 2, and then passage 3. I mean, there is nothing wrong with it. When the British Council designed this test to put the first passage at first, is because usually the difficulties of these 3 passages escalate when you go further. So it's totally okay for you to read passage 1 first and passage 3 last. However, for some of the students, I noticed that they tend to be good at different topics of passages. For example, for me, I like science. I usually read about news about science, and so the second thing we need to pay attention to in step 1 is to decide which topic of the passage you're more familiar with. For example, since I'm interested in science, I usually read about technology. Why is this step so important? Why does it matter? It's because being familiar with one specific topic of the passage means that you have an easier time understanding the difficult vocabularies relating to that topic. For example, if you're interested in science, then probably you would know what does the word botany mean and what does the word zoology mean. And or if you're interested in humanity, then you're more likely to know the word anthropology. So this is the reason why I suggest you to read the read the topic of the passage, read the passage which topic you're more familiar with. Read that passage first, because it's easier for you to understand the passage. Then you will have a better time finishing the questions. And also, beside the topic, there's another thing we should pay attention to, is the question types. As I've mentioned, For different students, you may be good at different question types. Maybe since I'm terrible at matching headings, but you may be really good at matching headings. So if you notice that there's one specific passage where you're familiar with the topic and you are really good at the questions after the passage, then maybe you should read that passage first. Obviously, you should finish the easier question first and save the most difficult questions at the last. Make sure you get all the points of the questions that you are sure about the answer. Step number 2. Read the title and the subtitle of the passage. Well, now that after step 1 you already decide which passage to read first, then we have to look at the specific passage. When we look at the specific passage, the first thing to do is to read the title and the subtitle of the passage. Why? Because when you read the title and the subtitle, the purpose is to try to get an idea of what the passage is about before we start reading it. After you have a general idea of the passage in your mind, you try your best to use your personal knowledge to predict the content and the structure using your knowledge of the topic. The purpose of this step is that if you have a general idea of what this passage is going to be talking about, when you are actually reading it, you will have an easier time understanding it, and it will help you answer the question further on. Okay, now that we have read through the title, the subtitle of the passage, it's time to look at the questions. Step number 3. Scan through the questions and highlight key phrases. What does scan mean? To scan is to read quickly in order to learn specific information, because we have already spent 1 to 2 minutes finishing step 1 or step 2, skimming through the passages. We have to spend more time subtracting the detailed information from the passage in order to answer the question. So what is the specific information we are trying to get here? If you read a lot of articles written by Western people, you would realize that they tend to put the main idea, the gist, at the beginning of the paragraph. And they like to summarize at the end of the paragraph. So if you really don't have time to read through every single word in the passage, just by reading the first, the second, and the last sentence of each passage, you should have a general idea of what this paragraph is trying to tell you. And also, we still have to look at the question type to look for keywords. So what are the keywords that we're looking for here? The first type of keywords is called special word. What are the special words? Numbers, time, name, capitalized words, location, italics, percentage, this symbol, dollar sign, and quotes. They're all very important here. And actually, they're very obvious in the passage. When I take a look at the passage, those symbols, numbers, are the first thing I notice. I don't even have to read the passage. I can just pick out those numbers. They're very easy. And also, the second type of keywords are very subtle, but also very important in answering the questions. They are the nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Adjectives here are sometimes overlooked by students, but they're important is because there is one type of IELTS reading question that troubled me when I was a student, was understanding the attitude of the author. Understanding author's attitudes. Does he agree with the other research, or is it against? What's his view about this research? It's just that they never tell you. They never actually tell you what they think about it, but they will use adjective to describe it. So some of the adjectives, they don't look very obvious, and you would quickly read through them usually, but they're very important. So I would also suggest you to highlight those adjectives as well. Okay, now that we have highlighted the keywords in the questions, we've skimmed through the title, skimmed through the passages, it's time to actually read the passage. Step number 4, skim through each paragraph of the passage. Why skimming? Obviously, you don't have enough time to read through every single word in the passage. So when we're skimming, look for the keywords you just circled in the questions. And also, in this step, the purpose, your goal, is to subtract information from the passage to locate the answer of each questions. And there's a simple trick in step 4 that most students would overlook, is to number them. What I mean by number them is that if you already subtract information, locate the answer, you know that the answer to this question is in this line. Underline them. Underline the sentence that you think contained the answer, and write the number. For example, this sentence indicates the answer to question number 13. I would write the number 13 next to the sentence. This step is really small, but make sure you do that. Is because this will help you use the order principle better. So, what is the order principle? The order principle means that information containing the answer will appear in the passage in order. I mean, isn't that simple? You located the answer for question number 1, and if you read through it, question number 2 will be just behind it. Well, isn't that simple? A little too easy to be true, isn't it? Because, yeah, you're right. Because there are actually some tricks in this principle we need to pay attention to. Not all of the question type follow this order principle. The question types that are in order are yes or no, not given, true or false, not given, multiple choice questions, and complete the sentences and complete the blanks. It's either notes, flowchart, sentences, or short answer questions. All of those questions, their answer will appear in order in the passage. And there are also some question type that the answer will not be in order. They are matching headings, matching paragraphs or information, multiple choice with multiple answers. You either pick 1 or 3 choices out of 5, or the summary completion. They are usually not in order. Sometimes they are, though. So the second trick we need to pay attention to is that the order principle only works within the question types. It may or may not work across different question types. Well, I know it may sound a little bit confusing, but don't worry. I will show you what it means later on in the demonstration. But before we start an example, before I start to demonstrate you how to use these 4 steps and how to take advantage of the order principle, let's have a small review of the 4 steps. What are the 4 steps? Step number 1, scan through all 3 passages. Step number 2, read the title and subtitle of the passage. These 2 steps usually happen together, and you should only spend 1 to 2 minutes in this process. Don't take too long. Save your time for the rest of the steps. Third step, skim through questions and highlight keywords. This is a very important step that can help you save time when you're scanning through the passage as well. So highlight keywords. Take your time and remember do you remember the keywords that I mentioned? Symbols, time, numbers. Symbols involve percentage, dollars, sign, time, 2010, a name, like John. Those words you should have an easier time locating them, finding, spotting them in the passage. So, and the last step is to locate information in the paragraphs. This steps usually take the longest time among four of them, and because this is actually the step that help you find the answer. So, now let's take a look at an example. Okay, so now let's take a look at an example. I'll use an example of the reading test to demonstrate how to actually to proceed through these 4 steps. Here I'm using the IELTS Cambridge English IELTS number 12, book number 12, yes, and test 7. Okay, remember the first step is to skim through all 3 passages. And remember the type, to pay attention to the types of the passage and the question types as well, to determine which passage to read first and which passage to read the last. Okay, so now let's go. The first passage, it has matching headings, correct headings, well, which I hate. Flying tortillas, I'm not so sure about these words. An airborne enriched doctor program has helped risk conservation take significant steps to protect the endangered. Okay, protect endangered species. Let's take a look. Filling the blanks, only one word only. Okay, I like this type. I'm usually really good at it. Passage number 2. Intersection of health science and geography. Okay, it's also about science. Notice this usually means there's headings. Yes, matching paragraph contain the following information. They're okay. Using one word only. Fill in the blanks. They're okay too. Passage 2 looks okay. Passage 3, music and emotions. Neuroscientist John considers the emotional power of music. Okay. Fill in the blanks. I like. Wait. It's a summary. Okay. Multiple choice. Censor sheet. Complete each sentence. Well, as I've said, these multiple choices questions and these this question type, they're usually in order. And the summary, if you take a look at the summary, Montreal study, the answer usually is within 2 to 3 paragraphs. They're relatively not too bad as well. So after skimming through these 3 passages, I've decided that I will read passage 3 first because it has 3 question types, and the 2 of them are in order, which means the rest of the information in the summary, which may not be in order, it will be easier to locate. And let's look at this passage. It has one matching and one filling the blank. Yeah, I'll read passage 2 the second, and I'll leave passage 1 the last because it has headings, which I really hate. Yeah. Okay. So we've decided to read through passage 1 first, passage 3 first. So now the step 1 and step 2 has been completed. We have skimmed through all 3 passages, and we have read through the subtitles. So the subtitles here is music and emotions. Neuroscientist Jonah considers the emotional power of music. Neuroscientist is the scientist that studies the brain cell and dysfunction. So and also emotional power of music. So there may be some words relating to psychology. I'm more interested in this area. I'm really familiar with the topic, so that's the reason why I decided to read passage 3 first. And music and emotions. There might be feelings. What might be the connection between emotional power and neuroscientist? Okay, now that I have a general idea what this passage may be talking about, we'll move on to step number 3. Scan through the questions and locate keywords. Remember the keywords I was talking about? Like numbers, time, and the signs, dollar signs, and quotation. Those are the symbols that's really easy to locate. So let's take a look at the keywords here. We'll highlight them together. Montreal, the location name. Who are recruited for study through advertisement had their brain activity motion listed. You will note it was noted that music stimulates the brain neurons release a substance called something. So here it should be a noun. And two of the parts of the brain which are associated with feelings, feeling something, maybe an adjective, feeling sad, feeling happy. Also, researchers also observe the brain area of the brain called something. So here should be a name, should be the name of a brain. Of the brain, particularly activity just before participant. The period is known. So here's also a name for a period. Activity in the parts is associated with it as reward. Reward stimuli. Okay. What's the point? That's the writer emphasis in the first paragraph. Oh, first paragraph. View of the Montreal study. In the second paragraph. Isn't it amazing? They already tell you which paragraph to look for the information. I find interesting about the results. What I find interesting about the results. Okay. Why does the writer refer to this person? Music and emotion. According to this mayor, what causes the listener's emotional response to music? According to this person, what cause respond to music? Okay. Complete each sentence. Okay. Montreal research. Studies demonstrate analyze Beethoven's music. Either theories of music suggest that. Theories suggest that. Response to music depends on our initial emotional state. Response depends on initial emotional state. Neural activity decrease if outcome become predictable. Decrease. Emotive music can bring to mind actual picture and event. Experience in our past can influence our emotional reaction to music. Experience, influence, emotional. Emotive music delays giving listeners what they expect to hear. Delay giving listeners what they expect. Your activity increase prior to key points in a musical piece. Increase. Okay, so now that I have circled the keywords, it's time to go back to the passage and locate those information. You would have a rough idea of those keywords in your mind. For example, here I already see the word Montreal. A person's name is also should be easier to find. Predict, anticipate phase. Oh, this person. triggers the production of these. Production of this, a chemical in you. Setting people's mood. Two parts of the brain which are associated with feeling. Experience of pleasure. So I'd say that, which is that? This is 20, 27, 28, 27, and 28. Here is what I mean by number. So, see, I have located that for the answer for the question number 37, release a substance called something and associated with feeling of feeling. Here, see, this is the Montreal study. In this paragraph, triggers the production of a chemical in the key setting setting people's mood. So I think this is the answer to question number 37. Read afterwards. As these two regions are being linked with the experience of pleasure and finding it's particularly surprising. So see, here are the answer for question number 37 and question number 38. This is what I mean by circling the answer. Since circling the answer and numbering them, since we all know that the answer of these question type usually appears in order in a passage, it's important to number them. Because let's say for example that I found out that the answer to question number 27 is here, and the answer to question 29 is somewhere here, 29. Then you would know that the answer to question number 28 is somewhere in between. So numbering them at the side of the passage, it will be easier for you to locate the answer that you find difficult, because you will know that they're in between.